Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with another week of World War II. Number 48, July 27th, 1940. No deal, Herr Hitler. Battle of Britain begins. So without anything, without anything to say here at the beginning, let's just go ahead and dive right into the beginning of the lovely air battle of Britain. Blah 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 blah. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yes,
Uh, oh, he's impersonating Churchill.
yes, I would like extra cheese on that.
It's kind of sounding close to Emperor Palpatine. Unlimited power.
And some of your finest sausage. Please have it delivered to number 10 Downing Street. Yes? Yes, thank you. Goodbye. July 26th.
I wonder how ordering takeout works for like, the prime minister or like the president of the USA. Like,
7th, 1940. This war has been fought so far by infantry, with tanks, at sea, on horseback, and in the skies. But just now we're seeing something we've never before seen in the history of warfare. A war being fought only in the air.
woo. No, not woo. No. People died. Or bad.
I'm Indy
No way.
Nidell. This is World War II. Last week, Adolf Hitler issued Directive 16, which plans for the invasion of Britain, set to begin with an air offensive August 5th, though the Kanalkampf, the battle for supremacy in the English Channel, a necessary prelude to any invasion, has already begun. There were sham elections in Estonia, Latvia,
What do you mean, sham elections? They were totally fair and free.
and Lithuania, which returned Soviet-friendly governments. As this week begins on the 21st, all three nations request to join the Soviet Union. Also that day, at an OKH, that's German Army High Command, conference, Hitler repeats that Germany must prepare to attack the USSR. His generals prefer dealing with Britain first, but do not object. A few days later, Alfred Jodl, Chief of Staff of OKW, the whole Armed Forces High Command, tells his planning section that it will be spring 1941 and to get cracking. But the Battle of Britain is still to be fought, and there is scattered action in the Kanalkampf this week. On the 24th is a real clash. Adolf Galland, quickly becoming a legendary pilot, leads 40
Never
German
heard of him.
Me-109s and 18 Dornier bombers against a shipping convoy in the Thames estuary. 3 British squadrons of Spitfires come out to engage them. They shoot down 2 German planes, though they claim 16. But Galland is reportedly shaken by the determination of what are outnumbered British pilots. He berated his own pilots after they returned for their reluctance to attack the Spitfires, and began to suspect that the battle ahead would not be as easy as the Reichsmarschall had supposed. The following day, Albert Kesselring's Luftflotte II attacks another convoy in the Dover Straits with help from light naval units. They are driven off by day, but return by night, and the British lose 11 of 21 ships in the convoy. The 26th, the British Admiralty orders no ships to pass Dover during daylight. That order is not, though, a response to the raids, but has been prepared for a while. The Battle of France, though sensational by reason of its brevity and decisiveness, had been an otherwise conventional military operation. Aircraft had played a major part in bringing victory, but neither they nor the tanks they had overflown had wrought the Allied defeat. That defeat was the outcome of deficits in strategy, military structure, and readiness for war, psychological as well as material. The Battle of
Well, I feel like in material, the Allies were actually pretty, in some respects, better off than the Nazis.
Britain, by contrast, was to be a truly revolutionary conflict. People have been flying airplanes for nearly 40 years now, and flying during wartime since the Italians took to the skies in Libya in 1911. But using aircraft alone as the means to break the enemy's ability to resist without the support of an army, this is genuinely new. Since the later stages of World War I, planes have been used reliably as bombers, And as the years have rolled on and aviation technology has improved, they are increasingly more reliable and with ever longer range. German and Italian bombers flying in the Spanish Civil War a couple of years ago showed the leaps and bounds that fighting aircraft had made. And we had reached a point where many people believed future wars would in fact be air wars, that aircraft would supplant the need for other branches of service. While that's not entirely what Germany is doing here, as I talked about the past 2 weeks, it's still far further in that direction than anyone has gone before. Thing is, when the war started 9 months ago, the Luftwaffe did not have any strategic bombing theory. Although they have experimented with new tactics in Poland and the recent campaigns, it's still only rudimentary plans without real technical feasibility. See, going back to like 1933, when they were considering Germany's ability to build and maintain a long-range bomber fleet, High Command thought that was not a feasible prospect based on resources and industrial capacity. And a lot of the higher-ups at the Luftwaffe were Army officers, and they've always seen the Air Force as a ground support thing, even now after the Battle of France. So think what's been going through their heads since Hitler's directive last week that they've been ordered to prevent all air attacks against Germany, destroy British coastal defenses, engage the British Navy's ships, break the resistance of the land forces, and also destroy the British reserves away from the front where
A bit too many targets, wouldn't you say? A bit too many. Like, there's no... honestly, it is so thematic to the story of really the German faults, the Nazi problem of World War II. The faults that are emblematic consistently. They don't know how to focus and stay... About to sneeze, maybe. I don't know. I think I got it. They don't know how to focus and stay focused, right? We see this in their production line, right? We've watched plenty of videos on German tank design and how Germans continue to change things like pieces here and there along the production line. And we see it here. But again, broad plan, no focus, no like target this first, like with their production lines. Make these things. Then we're gonna mess with it here and there. They're too broad.
wherever that may be, and that is a really tall order. But those German officers, and indeed the whole German army, have reason for optimism after the Battle of France, and not just for the morale boost of victory. France is now paying for the costs of its own occupation, and on top of that, what amounts to about a fifth of Germany's war costs so far. And the occupying army is enjoying all of the goods France has to sell, or have taken from them. The shops in Paris have been stripped by German officers. French raw materials are a real boon for German production, and just the weapons, the vehicles, and the horses taken in France have revitalized the German army. French agriculture helped the Germans live better than they had since before the First World War. The French daily ration of meats, fat, and sugar had to be reduced to around half that of the Germans. Germans regarded this as just revenge for the hunger years they had endured after the First World War. The French were encouraged to console themselves with the idea that as soon as Britain came to terms, a general peace settlement would improve conditions for everybody. But the British are an awful long way from coming to terms.
Yep.
On the 22nd, the LDV, Local Defense Volunteers,
You're gonna have to wait like 5 more years, France. Ooh.
is officially
Well, 4 years until Allied troops land. Ooh.
renamed the Home Guard. The LDV had been formed back in May, once fears of a German invasion boomed during the German attacks in France and the Benelux countries, and gave the British government greater control than the private defense groups that had been forming, especially around places like factories and airfields. By now, over 1.5 million men have signed up, women not being admitted at the moment, mainly those too young or too old for military service or in reserve professions. The 23rd, the British purchasing mission in the U.S. makes a deal to be allowed to buy up to 40% of U.S. aircraft production.
Damn.
Of over 33,000 aircraft being made in the U.S., 19,020 will remain there, and 14,375 delivered to Britain. They are working out similar arrangements for things like rifles and tanks as well, the idea being to cover Britain's needs until the end of 1941. The 25th, British Prime Minister Winston
Funny timing.
Churchill says that the 14,000 Polish soldiers in Britain should be given American rifles as soon as they arrive. There are also 4,000 Czech, 3,000 anti-Nazi German, 2,000 French, 1,000 Dutch, 1,000 Norwegian, and 500 Belgian soldiers training in Britain.
Yeah, Belgium.
Numbers courtesy of Martin Gilbert. The United States this week also prohibits exports of oil and metal products unless they're under license to countries generally outside the Americas. This is seen by many as anti-Japanese, mainly because of the Japanese need for fuel imports. And after this, Japanese oil stocks do begin to decline, and they will turn their attention towards the resources of the Dutch East Indies and Malaysia. Well, Japan itself sees some changes this week. Last week, Mitsumasa Yonai resigned as Japanese prime minister under military pressure. A new cabinet under Prince Fuminaro Konoye forms the 22nd. Yosuke.
What is with some... It's typically you see this in fascist, authoritarian regime. The medals. They're excessive. Like, we see this... I feel like we don't really see it as much on the Germans. We still see it, but, like, the ones that jump out to my mind are, like, North Korea, Soviet Union, and also Russia. Later, Russia, under Putin. And here with the Japanese Prime Minister and his successor. Why so excessive? Why?
A new cabinet under Prince Fuminaro Konoye forms the 22nd. Yosuke Matsuoka is foreign minister. General Hideki Tojo becomes minister of war. The new government pressures Vichy France to give the Japanese bases in French Indochina and does not rule out force as a means to get what it wants. The major overland supply routes to China, with whom Japan is at war, from Indochina and Burma are now closed. And on the 26th, new Japanese policy gives #1 priority to solve the China problem by preventing supplies coming through French Indochina and being more aggressive in the Dutch East Indies. Next week, the Konoye government will declare its intention of setting up a new order in Greater East Asia. The moralities of Prince Konoye's new order, like that of Hitler's Thousand-Year Reich, were those of a master race, for whom the end always justified the means. That quote is from Martin Gilbert, who writes a similar note about Germany this month. In a published review of German sterilization laws, Ernst Wuden, psychiatry professor at the University of Munich, and a firm believer in racial science, praises Hitler for having the courage to stop the terror of the inferior kind of people using racial hygiene measures. But the Germans were terrorizing pretty much everyone this week. On the 24th, the unarmed French merchant steamer Mekne is sighted by a German torpedo boat. Remember, France is no longer at war with Germany. That steamer has 1,179 French sailors aboard. The French flag is illuminated by a spotlight, and the portholes are all lit up.
I mean, I can't even fucking see that.
As are the sides of the ship. The captain even brings the boat to a stop and flashes his name and his nationality in Morse code. The torpedo boat sinks the Mekne, and 383 French sailors drown.
That's fucked up.
And the week comes to an end, a week of fighting over the English Channel, even as the British beef up their defenses and production. And the Germans use French resources to beef up their own army. Japan gets a new government, and on the 22nd, the Havana Conference marks a change in the Monroe Doctrine. Now, the United States will act together with its neighbors in the Western Hemisphere to collectively defend themselves for their collective security. And the U.S. is providing for Britain's security against Germany. Though whether American planes and guns can arrive soon enough to help is anybody's guess. And the U.S. is also beginning to sabotage Japan's security and indirectly its ability to make war. But Japan is looking further afield now than China, and Germany further afield than Britain. It's pretty safe to say that even though there is basically a two-country active war in Europe and another one in East Asia, this genuinely is really a world war, and everyone is affected.
Yay.
Talking about strategic bombing, check out the May episode of our War Against Humanity.
And that was week 48 of World War II, July 27th, 1940. No deal, Herr Hitler. Battle of Britain begins. Sort of. It's not. It's gonna take a while to heat up. I can't remember when the battle over London happens. But anyways, there's really nothing else to talk about this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I'll see you guys in the video. Peace.